Hello, my name is Paul. I live in Sheffield and I'm 56 years old. And exactly 2 years ago, I had a stroke. I was driving on my way to work and felt rather dizzy. And when I got out of the car, I found I was walking to the left-hand side. After a few minutes, I felt rather ill, so decided to walk back to the car, and I struggled and had to use a camera tripod that I had with me as a makeshift walking stick. When sitting in the car, I realised I had pins and needles in my left hand side, and that was radiating down my arm and into my fingers, and I was worried that it might be either a cardiac problem or a neurological problem. And I checked my face in the mirror and everything seemed normal. I telephoned one of my colleagues and they said my speech sounded normal. And I tried touching my thumb and first finger with both hands and found it rather difficult with my left hand. No problem with the right hand. My pulse was nice and strong and steady. My heart wasn't racing at all. So I sort of ruled out the fact that it was probably not cardiac and more than likely neurological. And at that point, I realised I was probably having a stroke. I've been very close to my doctor's surgery. I actually drove to the surgery while I still have movement in my left arm and my left leg. And this was at the time 2 years ago when ambulances were taking more than an hour to get to patients. And I was worried that I may have been stranded at the roadside without an ambulance. So I took the decision, although probably foolishly, to drive to the GP. And after presenting myself at the GP, and the doctor did a series of quick tests and came to the same conclusion in the end that it was probably a stroke, an ambulance was called and I was conveyed to the hospital. Well, through one thing and another, we found out it was a stroke, and I had a brain scan and they actually saw evidence of 2 minor strokes and probably the larger one I was having. And at that time I felt absolutely shocking. My left hand side went totally out of control. I couldn't move any of my left hand side. My left arm and my left leg, I couldn't move them. I could see them, I could feel everything, but just couldn't move them. And that was the case for about 48 hours. And after 48 hours, I managed to lift my left leg about 1 inch off the bed, but still no movement in my arm. Anyway, through one thing and another, I was diagnosed as having a stroke on the right hand side of the brain, and it was affecting the left hand side. And the scans and the tests sort of bore that out and proved that to be the case. Well, after a couple of weeks or so, I was taken to a stroke rehabilitation unit in Sheffield, and the staff there were absolutely wonderful. My mood was very low, probably the lowest I've ever been. I was scared, I was worried. I was worried that my life was really over. Before the stroke, I was a keen motorcyclist. I had a motorhome. I had my middle-age crisis sports car that I used for work. And I thought, well, I'll never be able to use any of these. I won't be able to go fishing, spend time with my grandchildren. I used to love holidays abroad. I was worried that all that would stop. In fact, I felt that my life was over, and everything that I enjoyed had been taken away from me. Well, I studied psychology a few years ago at the Open University, and one of the things that I studied at the time was about brain injury. And one of the things that I recall from that course was people with brain injury tend to find it hard to accept that it's happened. There's an element of denial, self-pity, fear, very sensitive emotions, tears, and a sense of mourning for the life that I had before. Well, I realised that I was probably going to experience all these things, and I was prepared. I was prepared by having my friends around me, by talking to the nursing staff and talking to the members of my family who were there, the ones who were there for me before the stroke, and the ones who were there after. And believe me, not all your family are going to be supportive. Some will be great, but be prepared for some that are not. Also be prepared if you have a stroke, or you've survived and recovering from a stroke, that your emotions will probably be much more sensitive than they were before. I found that music can render me into tears, or a sad program on TV, or a sad story if I listen to something on the radio. I'm not ashamed to say that I cry at things more easily than before, and I'm also a little bit more impatient, and I sometimes find it hard to get the right words to convey how I feel. And although my thoughts are quick and sharp, it's sometimes hard to get those thoughts and words out as speech. Be prepared for that if you ever have a stroke, or if you're caring for somebody who's had a stroke, or a friend of somebody who's had one. Please understand that the brain of the stroke survivor may be pretty sharp as far as thoughts are concerned, but the speech and the way that a person expresses himself can be different after the stroke than before. Bear in mind, it's still the same person, but they're experiencing a different way of life. Be prepared that your emotions will be on a roller coaster for a while. You may have bouts of depression, you might have euphoria, you may have anger and frustration. It's natural. I expect it. It'd be strange if you didn't have some of those. So, this is where I am now 2 years later. And through all that fear and anxiety, I've survived it so far. 2 years later, I'm driving again, albeit in an adapted vehicle. I have a mobility scooter, which I can put in and out of the car. I can get around again. I've regained some independence. That was my biggest fear, losing all the independence. I still can't go fishing, I still can't go motorhoming, I'll never be able to ride a motorbike. But I found other hobbies now, other things that keep me interested, other things to keep the brain active, and I would urge you to do the same. If you've had a stroke, it's not over. Everything's not doom and gloom. It'll be hard, it's a long journey. You may not get the life back that you had before, but you'll have a different life. A life that you can adapt to. And if your friends and family are patient, they'll adapt with you. So that's all for now. And I hope to make another video soon. So that's 10 minutes of talking. Thank you for bearing with me if you're still there. And thank you for having an insight. And please have some understanding if you're caring for somebody with a stroke. If you've had a friend with a stroke, or if you've recently suffered one yourself, it's not all over. It's hard work. It's a new life. You're the same person in a different life. Keep smiling. Keep battling. Take care.